All right, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Our presenter today is John Mazzilli. He's a financial aid officer at the University of Texas Health Science Center at Houston. He works very closely with our students, and his presentation is called Preparing for School, Minimizing Educational Debt. So John, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thanks, Katie. Hi, everyone. So as Katie mentioned, I'm John. I'm the financial aid officer for McGovern Medical School and the School of Dentistry here in Houston. But our office also handles financial aid for you guys in Tyler. Although I don't, handle the actual financial aid for the students in Tyler, I do like to give these sessions like usually of some kind of general financial interest, usually having to do with student loans, student borrowing. We also do other topics like credit and retirement programs, really to get you started. Just a little bit of knowledge so that you're not, completely taken by surprise when you have to start dealing with these things eventually. So let's get started. Today we're going to talk about minimizing educational debt and how to really start a responsible repayment plan for your loans once you do graduate. Okay. All right. So right now you see this picture here where this guy, he has no idea what he's doing. There's so many different directions, people pulling him all different directions, so he doesn't know what to do. So to get started, we're going to go through creating a budget, how to minimize your debt, how to stay informed, which is very important, and how to pay off debt early. Paying off debt early is probably the most important thing you can do aside from not borrowing a lot in the first place. Paying off debt early is going to save you thousands of dollars and lots of headaches in your life. So that's going to be a very important point, okay? Let's move on here. So after this, hopefully you'll have a nice clear road ahead of you like this lady in the picture you see now. So the first most important point of like personal finance is creating a budget. Everyone needs a budget. You might think that you don't need a budget, or that a budget is kind of a bad word. A budget is not meaning that you're cheap or that you have to save money or something. It's just a plan of how you're going to manage your finances, okay? So a budget is not a bad word. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's just having a plan instead of just getting to the end of the month and wondering where all your money went. So one of the really great ways that I like to do is use a worksheet. And most of you probably have student loans, so you may have heard of Navient. This is one of the largest student loan servicers out there. Some of you may have a different loan servicer like Nelnet or Great Lakes or one of the other big ones. They all on their websites have budgeting tools and budgeting worksheets. The one I like the most is that Navient website, and this one has two columns where you can actually, if you download the PDF from their website, these are fillable fields. So you can actually type in, your budgeted amount and then the actual amount. And it's really useful while you're in school to get a handle of making a budget every month, okay? Don't worry about being exactly right on the money down to each cent. At least at first, do like a ballpark figure. So you can type in your monthly salary, and then at the end of the month, you would go over your expenses in the actual column here on the right, okay? And that's for each thing. Some expenses like your rent payment are going to stay the same each month. Your cell phone will probably stay the same, but something like electricity, it's going to vary a lot. So you can budget a certain amount for it, and then over time, as you go a few months, you can kind of say, yeah, well, I'm budgeting much more for electricity than I'm actually using. So, that's good news. And then you can say, I can dedicate that money to something else like an emergency fund or saving for retirement, some other kind of goal. On the other hand, you might notice, yeah, I'm spending way too much on, I don't know, buying clothes every month, so you might say, yeah, that's kind of irresponsible. Maybe I'm going to cut that back and dedicate more money to, my emergency fund or something, So you can kind of, after doing this for a few months, you'll get a handle on where you're, spending too much, where you're not spending enough, maybe, like in savings, if you're not saving enough, then you're going to have to go to one of the other categories or increase your income. Everybody would love to increase their income, of course. I know we have a lot of students, especially in our graduate nursing programs, can just pick up an extra shift once in a while to bring in some extra money. So if you have that option, you can work the income side of things. But as students, you're mostly going to have to work on the expenditure side. Okay, so you're going to have to decrease expenditures in some area if you want to increase expenditures in another. Okay. A really important thing about creating a budget and spending in general is to spend consciously. So for every purchase, if you've never created a budget before, the way you can get started is just don't, jump into it right away. But for 1 month, just write down everything that you spend money on, and then go back and be like, was this really conscious spending, or was I just spending just because I felt like it, For every purchase, think, is this going to enrich my life? Is this going to actually add value to my life? And is it worth the price that I'm paying for it? And can I get it for cheaper somewhere else? But yeah, definitely spend consciously, spend with a plan, don't just go out and be spending money like it's nothing. Because, think about it, something might cost 40 or 50 bucks, but, most of us, we have to go through a lot to make 50 bucks. So, it's not just some small thing. And so the way that you design this it's called a zero-based budget. So what that means is the amount of income you have and the amount of expenses you have. If you subtract all your expenses during the month from your income, it should come to zero. So that's really giving every dollar, a job during the month. So the job might be, this dollar is going to buy groceries, or this dollar is going to pay rent, and this dollar is going to go for my retirement fund, so even savings is an expenditure. So you want to keep that into account, as it should be balanced at zero. Okay, so all your expenses and your income should be equal. Okay, now if you're finding that your income is not covering all your expenses and you're going into debt, then you would need to make some serious changes so that you can really cut back, so that you can at least dedicate something to savings. Because a lot of people don't kind of think about savings until you're in a bind and you need some extra money, and then it's a problem because you have to end up borrowing on a credit card or something, and that's a slippery slope. You don't want to start doing that. So make sure you do have a plan each month. Okay. Now, to minimize debt, this is going to be very important because, especially as students, most students are going to have to take at least some student loans. You may not take the full amount that they offer you, but most of you will have to take at least some during, at least 1 or 2 semesters while you're here. So the way you want to minimize your debt is apply for any grants or scholarships that you can. You can get started in the Student Affairs Office. They usually have a list of scholarships you can apply for. We also have some on our website, the Financial Aid Office website, which I'll show you in the last slide with some references. It's a good place to get started because, any scholarship, even if it's just like 500 bucks or 1,000 bucks, that's less money that you're going to have to pay interest on over time. So it's going to save you a lot. All right. Make sure you fill out the FAFSA on time. I can't, take away from being a financial aid officer. So I always remind people to apply on October 1st for that, for the FAFSA, so that you're first in line for any grant programs. you know, it's kind of unpredictable when we're going to get money from the state, but if we do, the people who applied first usually are going to be first in line for grants, okay? I always mention other loan repayment programs like public service loan forgiveness, where if you work for a government agency or a nonprofit, you do that for 10 years under a qualifying repayment program, and the government will forgive the rest of the balance on your federal student loans that's left. So that's, you know, especially in the health professions, some of us end up with, you know, a lot of debt, and that can be a big help over time. And other programs like the NIH loan repayment program. So this is a very good one. When I was working as a research fellow, I actually had a loan repayment program grant from NIH, and you know, they raised the limit now. They'll actually pay back up to $100,000 of your student loans over 2 years. So each quarter, while you're involved in a clinical research project, they will make payments towards your student loans. So that's going to save you a ton of money. And it's also a good experience for writing grants and, you know, how to design a research project, that kind of thing too. So, you know, it's really helping you out. The government, you know, gets to bring in the next generation of clinician scientists, and you get your loans repaid. So it's, you know, that's excellent. There are other loan repayment programs through, you know, some private companies may have repayment programs if you work for them a certain amount of time. The military has great student loan repayment programs. If you're planning to go that route, definitely look into that. And some of them vary, but at least with the NIH loan repayment, the payments are actually, they're tax-free because the NIH also pays the taxes on it. So it's twice as nice, so to speak. So definitely look into those. But usually for graduate students, there's not so many grant and scholarships. It's more like they're willing to repay your loans for you once you do graduate and start working for them. Yeah, most grant programs through the federal government, at least, once you have your first bachelor's degree, they kind of like, you know, you're on your own unless you're going to come and work for us. And then in that case, you know, they do all these loan repayment programs, but not necessarily grants for tuition while you're still in school. All right, so that's something you need to be aware of as you're planning. Now, if you do have to take loans, I always recommend taking federal loans before you do private loans. You know, private loans, sometimes it looks like they're, you know, they kind of tease you in with like a lower interest rate. So you might be like, wow, this is a really great deal. But then, you know, they're kind of unpredictable. No one knows all the ins and outs of every private loan program out there. So, you know, I can't tell you which bank to borrow from or don't borrow from. But, you know, really you have to do your due diligence on those because not all of them have like the borrower benefits like the federal loan programs have. So under the federal loan repayment programs, you know, they're really much more willing to work with you, especially if you have a lower income or if you go back to school, they'll defer payments, whereas not all of the private loan programs will, you know, work with you if you fall on hard times or have unemployment or go back to school, some kind of situation like that. So definitely go for the federal loan programs first. That's what I always recommend. If you do have questions about your federal loan programs, your counselor is really the best place to start. And also at studentaid.gov. So if you prefer to just read it all yourself, you know, there's plenty of information at the Department of Education website. And make sure you take the lowest interest rate possible. This is gonna save you a lot of money over time. So if you're eligible for like an institutional loan, or, you know, I don't work too much with your programs, but I know for like the dental school and the medical school, we have like loan for disadvantaged students. So if you qualify under that loan, You know, the interest rates are lower, the repayment options are more flexible, so that's a really good route. You'll automatically be offered whatever. We try to offer you the best loan for you in your MyUTH account. So whatever is offered to you first, you know, at the higher level in there, that's going to be better for you in your student portal, okay? And if you're not sure, you know, you can always email your financial aid counselor and just ask them, hey, you know, I'm not sure if I should take the Grad Plus loan or the unsubsidized loan, and they'll tell you like, you know, yeah, take the unsubsidized loan because it has a lower interest rate. It's not credit based, so you're not running a credit check, that kind of thing. Okay. And with the federal loans, most of you are probably only going to receive an offer for the unsubsidized and the Grad Plus. So definitely take the direct unsubsidized loan before you go to the Graduate Plus. I always tell people, you know, only apply for that Graduate Plus loan if you absolutely need the money. You know, try to get by on just the unsubsidized loan. And the reason is because the interest rates are lower in the unsubsidized loan program, and also it's it's not credit based, so you're not going to be hitting your credit, you know, every year applying for the funds. Okay. Let's move to the next one here. Okay. So now, once you got your loans, you want to make sure you stay informed. So definitely, they may seem like common sense points, but make sure that you are doing this. Store all your loan documents and your promissory notes in a safe place. Both the federal and private loans, if you have them, and keep electronic copies. Okay. Don't, you know, if your promissory note gets destroyed in a flood or something, you're going to have to try to find it either with your servicer or see if you have a backed up copy. And just you know, scan a copy into the cloud if you didn't fill out the electronic MPN. If you're old enough like I am to have filled out the MPN by hand, then make sure you keep a copy of that in a safe place. And also just scan a copy of it and, you know, email it to yourself or something so that you'll always have it. All right. And that's especially important because, like in the loan repayment programs, they want the original MPNs for all your loans so that they will know where to send the payments to. Okay. Keep all your FAFSA and loan documents. I know it's really boring. Every time you fill out the FAFSA, they generate that student aid report for you, but make sure you do download that and you know, keep it either electronically in your email account or something, or print it out and keep it in a safe place in your home. Understand the options for repayment of loans. If you don't understand them, you can always call your financial aid counselor. They can look at the loans you have with us. If you have loans from, you know, undergraduate or a different school, then you should get in touch with the servicer and find out exactly which repayment plans and which repayment options you have on those different loans, okay? And regularly log into the servicer's website. This is very important. I cannot tell you how many students graduate from school after 4 or 5 years and they have no idea who is even servicing their loan, okay? So your loans that are through us, we usually can look up the servicer, but to have the most up-to-date information, you want to log into studentaid.gov, and you should also be logging in there regularly. And the front page, your dashboard, will show you your borrowing history. So it'll tell you which programs you've borrowed under, the loan types, the interest rates, and the current servicer. And the servicers can change over time. So these loans get bought and sold to different companies. They can be assigned to a different servicer from one year to the next. So really stay on top of that. And studentaid.gov is the place to go to know where your federal loans are currently, okay? You don't want to be sending payments to the wrong servicer and they never get applied. So make sure you do stay on top of that by logging in, you know, at least once a month to check on the status of it, okay? And for private loans, a lot of you may have private loans from undergraduate education or be taking private loans now even. And you can find the status of those at annualcreditreport.com. That is the free credit report site, and it's sanctioned by the federal government. Now, usually you're entitled to one free credit report from each of the 3 major credit bureaus once a year. But right now, until April of next year, due to the CARES Act, you're actually entitled to 1 per week. So once every 7 days, you can get a credit report. So take advantage of that. Even if you don't do it every week, of course, you know, nobody has time for that. But, you know, sit down and get 1 copy of the credit report and go through it, make sure all the accounts are current. If you have anything that says that you were late or past due, if it's correct, then work on paying it off. If it's incorrect, then you can challenge it, okay? So definitely get a copy of your credit report at annualcreditreport.com, and don't, you know, they'll try to sell you credit scores and everything. The credit score is not included in the free report, but you don't really need the score when you're first getting started on everything. So go for the free version first and check out the damage, so to speak, before you get started in doing anything fancier than that, okay? So I also wanted to discuss a little bit how to pay off debt. So once you have a bunch of debt, there's going to be 2 major quick repayment strategies. And I'll start off with the first one, which is the debt avalanche method. Now, in the avalanche method, you list out your debts from highest interest rate to lowest interest rate, okay? So it doesn't matter what the balance is, you're gonna go by the interest rates, all right? Now, you make minimum payments on all of them except the one with the highest interest rate, and you just attack that highest interest rate until it's completely repaid. And then you add that payment to the next lowest interest rate, plus the minimum payment you were making, and attack that one until that one's repaid. And then you sort of keep going. So as you go, it's called the avalanche because, you know, the payments get bigger over time. And as you can see over here, you know, so this guy, maybe he just graduated school. You see he's got some student loans there, a car loan, a mortgage, a couple credit cards. He's paying some high interest on these credit cards. You know, one is at 22% interest. That's a lot of money. So he's gonna attack that one first with a $100 payment, and then he's gonna add that to what he was paying. So he's gonna start off paying the minimum that first month of $35 on card number 2. But then once he pays off card number 1, he's going to take that whole payment and add it. So he's making $135. So you should see that there. And then attack it until card 2 is paid off, okay? And then he can take that and add the $135 to the $390 minimum payment on the car loan. So he's paying $525 a month. And the debt avalanche, because it pays off the highest interest rates first, that's actually going to save you a lot more money over time. And mathematically, this is the best way to pay off several different debts at different interest rates by spending less money in interest and paying off the fastest over time, okay? Now, the next one I'm going to show you is called the debt snowball method. Now, the debt snowball is different because in this one, you don't worry about the interest rates. You list your debts by size. So if you owe a small debt, you know, you would place that one first, and then, you know, higher debt, and then the largest debt, you save that for last. And so this is more of like a psychological play because you want to pay off your small debts because it's easier for people to get fired up once they see they're making progress, you know. So if you go back to the, you know, back here at the avalanche method, if card number 1 has a huge balance, you know, you may do it a few months and then kind of lose interest or feel like you're not making any progress, and you might give up on the avalanche method. Whereas with the snowball method, you know, you get a few quick wins at first because you pay off these small debts and you kind of get fired up. You know, you say, oh yeah, I could do this, you know, and then you start attacking the next one as things go on. Now, you're going to do the same thing. Whatever you were paying on that small debt, you add it to the next payment. So your payments do get higher over time and it starts accelerating. But this isn't going to be the most, most mathematically correct way, because you're not necessarily paying off the highest interest first. So you may pay more in interest over time than with the avalanche method. But with the snowball method, the research shows that you're much more likely to stick with it until the end. Okay, so, it's your choice, but if you have debts, please do one of them. One of these methods is going to be excellent to work for you. Just making minimum payments for the rest of your life that's the way to stay in debt, for a long time and pay the absolute maximum, more than you would want to pay, okay? So I don't want to take too much time, but make sure that you're prepared. The AAMC Education Debt Manager, this is designed for medical students. I have a whole bunch of print copies in the office, so if you're ever in Houston, we can give you a print copy of this. It's an excellent resource, tells you all about, how to get started in budgeting, the different federal loan programs, and it's designed for medical students, but the graduate programs for student lending are pretty much all the same, and it'll tell you, how to devise a responsible repayment strategy. That's also available for free at the AAMC website, so you can download it in PDF version, or you can email your counselor. We all have the PDF version of that. The Navient budget worksheet that we saw is at the link that you see right now, navient.com. I will send this presentation to Katie so that she can send it out to you guys and you can actually click the links here. But Navient doesn't have just that budget worksheet. They have a lot of other good resources. It's an excellent place to get started when you're first learning about, money and finances in general and personal finance. Once you graduate, it's going to be, you're going to have to manage a whole lot more. Right now, while you're in school, especially if you're living on just the student loans, it's kind of low stakes. It's a good place to make small mistakes. Everyone is going to make mistakes in their lifetime, so make small mistakes now, don't make big mistakes later, and get started in budgeting now so that you're, you know how to plan for large expenses in the future, okay? And so remember I mentioned where you can look for scholarships. You can go to our financial aid website, uth.edu/SFS. It's like Student Financial Services, very easy to remember. And there's actually a link for scholarships, and it'll take you to a search engine where you can search for all kinds of scholarships. So you can search by, groups that you belong. Say you're, a nursing student, there may be different types of scholarships for nursing students, so you can search that, or whatever program you're in. If you're interested in a certain type of nursing, like you want to be a nurse practitioner or something, there may be a special scholarship available for students interested in that. And definitely monitor your student debt throughout school. I deal more with medical students and dental students, and their debt levels are astronomical. So it's very sad to see someone who kind of just borrowed the money for 4 years and then, come to my office and be like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I just realized I have $250,000 in debt and no money. So, help. And, remember, keep track of it while you're in school. And then even after you graduate, you can always call our office. We're still your school. You can call us and we can help you get started. If you can't, find the servicer, we'll remind you to go to student aid and look it up. Or something like that. So you can always come to us for help, and we can at least get you started somewhere, even if we can't just, have some magic website that solves all your problems. Okay. Now, I also wanted to mention here we have the Education Debt Manager that I mentioned, and that's from AAMC, and also the White Coat Investor. This is by an ER doc. He actually started a blog called White Coat Investor, which was for medical and dental professionals, really, but now he's written books and everything. He has a YouTube channel, I think, so he has a lot of really great information. I recommend reading Financial Boot Camp from White Coat Investor. It's really great. It's, there may be some chapters like malpractice insurance that you can skip if you're not going to be involved in clinical care, that kind of thing. But at least financially, I think everyone should read it. It's geared more towards like medical or dental professionals, but I think anyone can benefit from reading through that. All right.